She was kicked out of a billion-dollar dynasty the night she gave birth, because her daughter wasn't worthy of the Harris name. What they didn't know, the woman they humiliated was about to make them get on their knees and beg. This is the revenge story you'll never forget. Hey, my warriors, it's your storyteller. Some nights the memories still wake me up, the screams, the slammed doors, the way they looked at my little girl like she was trash. I'm shaking, typing this, but I promised I'd never hide the truth from you. So before we start, I need to speak this over you like armor. May every person who ever made you feel small live to see the day you tower over them. May every door slammed in your face become the wind that launches you higher. May the same hands that pushed you down end up reaching up, begging for the mercy you no longer owe them. You are not forgotten. You are not weak. You are becoming unstoppable whether they see it yet or not. If you're hurting tonight, this story is for you. Watch until the very last second. Drop a love in the comments so I know you're riding this revenge with me. Because they thought they buried her. They had no idea they just planted her. Now breathe, close the door, turn the lights low, and let the story begin. 3 years ago, thunder cracked over the private maternity wing of St. Augustine's Hospital as Melissa Roger, elegant even in labor, pushed through the final contraction after 14 brutal hours. Rain lashed the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse suite that cost more per night than most people made in a year. Aaron Harris, billionaire heir, stood at her bedside in a custom Tom Ford suit, checking his watch more than her pain. "It's almost over, babe," he muttered, voice smooth but distant, the faint scent of aged whiskey on his breath even at 3 a.m. Then the door opened, and the legendary obstetrician placed a tiny, perfect baby girl on Melissa's chest. Lily Harris, storm gray eyes already blazing with defiance. A soft tuft of dark hair, skin like warm porcelain, kissed by gold. She's everything," Melissa sobbed, cradling her daughter like the world hadn't already started crumbling. For one heartbeat, Aaron almost looked human. Then the double doors flew open. Victoria Harris, Aaron's mother, swept in like a glacier in couture, flanked by security and her stone-faced younger son, Grayson. "Well?" Victoria's voice cut through the beeping monitors like a blade. "It's a girl, Mother," Aaron said quietly. "Lily." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Victoria's arctic blue eyes raked over the newborn, then flicked to Melissa with pure contempt. "A girl," she repeated, the word dripping acid. "And she certainly favors your side, doesn't she, Melissa?" Melissa's arms tightened around Lily until the baby whimpered. "She's perfect," Melissa whispered, voice shaking with rage and postpartum hormones. Victoria smiled, the kind of smile that belonged in a boardroom right before someone got destroyed. "Perfect?" she echoed. "My dear, perfection carries the Harris name in a very specific way." The head nurse, an older woman who'd seen too many rich family dramas, stepped forward. "Visiting hours." Victoria cut her off with one raised hand worth more than the nurse's yearly salary. And that was the moment, the exact second, Melissa knew her fairy tale was over, and her war had just begun. The rain hadn't stopped by the time the town car Victoria hired dumped Melissa and a 3-day-old Lily on the curb outside a rundown motel off Highway 17. The driver popped the trunk, set down one Louis Vuitton suitcase, the only bag the Harris security team had allowed her to pack, and drove off, without a word. Melissa stood under the broken neon sign, newborn pressed to her chest, hospital gown still damp beneath the thin coat someone had thrown over her shoulders. She had $32 in cash, a breast pump with no batteries, and a baby who started crying the second the taillights disappeared. That night she learned what rock bottom really smelled like: mildew, sour diapers, and her own fear. The first week blurred into a haze of colic and eviction notices. The motel manager wanted $280 up front. Melissa paid with the diamond studs Aaron had given her for their first anniversary. She sold her wedding ring at a pawn shop for $11,000, less than a tenth of what it was worth, and rented a studio apartment above a laundromat that reeked of bleach and desperation. Every time the dryers thumped below, Lily startled awake. Every time Lily cried, Melissa whispered the same promise against her tiny forehead: "I'm going to fix this, baby. Mommy's going to fix this." Days turned into months of pure survival. She took the first job she could get, night shift waitress at a 24-hour diner where truckers pinched her backside and left 50-cent tips. She pumped breast milk in the walk-in freezer between orders, tears freezing on her cheeks. During the day, she pushed Lily's second-hand stroller to the public library, spreading resumes across the table, while Lily napped in the children's corner. No one wanted to hire the disgraced ex-wife of Aaron Harris. The scandal sheets had made sure of that. Gold digger booted, after failing to deliver male heir. Some articles even used her hospital exit photo, grainy, rain-soaked, broken. She stopped reading them. She stopped crying in public. She started fighting. At 26, Melissa enrolled in community college with a partial scholarship and a government grant that barely covered books. She studied business at 3 a.m., while Lily slept on a blanket beside the desk. Highlighter clenched between her teeth. Coffee cold and bitter. When professors told her statistics was too hard for single moms, she aced the final with a 98. When classmates whispered about her past, she smiled politely and beat them on every group project. She learned to turn shame into fuel. Money was always short. One winter, the heat got shut off. Melissa wrapped Lily in 3 layers, lined the windows with towels, and worked double shifts until her feet bled inside her shoes. She slept 3 hours a night for 2 years straight. People said she looked hard now, eyes sharper, mouth set, cheekbones carved from hunger and fury. Good. She wanted to look like someone you didn't mess with twice. Slowly, painfully, the pieces started fitting together. A professor introduced her to a startup incubator for women. She entered a business pitch competition with nothing but a laptop borrowed from the library and an idea born at 4 a.m., while Lily had an ear infection. Her app, an AI-driven platform connecting single mothers with flexible, high-paying remote work, won second place and a $50,000 grant. She named the company Phoenix Rise. The first check she cashed didn't go to rent or diapers. It went to a lawyer. Melissa filed for sole custody, child support, and a restraining order. Aaron's legal team laughed it off until they realized she now had receipts, texts, bank records, the paper trail of every dime he'd hidden offshore while claiming poverty. The judge didn't laugh. For the first time in 3 years, money flowed into Melissa's account instead of out of it. She bought Lily a real crib. She bought herself a bed that wasn't a couch. She stood in the middle of their tiny apartment and cried so hard she scared the baby. But tears didn't last long anymore. Every setback had carved something new into her. A woman who no longer asked permission, who no longer flinched at raised voices, who looked in the mirror and saw a queen in training. One night, after putting Lily to bed, Melissa opened her laptop and stared at the growing user count on Phoenix Rise. 20,000 mothers had found work because of what she'd built from nothing. She scrolled through their messages. "You saved my family. I'm not ashamed anymore. Thank you for giving me hope." Her hands shook as she closed the screen. Victoria Harris once told her a daughter made her worthless. Melissa whispered into the dark, voice raw and deadly calm. "Watch me turn worthless into an empire you'll never touch." She was no longer the broken girl in the rain. She was the storm that came after, and she was just getting started. It started with a single email. 4 years after the night they threw her out, Melissa was 28, running on 4 hours of sleep and 3 coffees, when an unknown sender pinged her Phoenix Rise inbox. Subject line: "You deserve to know what really happened." No text in the body, just 17 attachments, scans of offshore account statements, shell company incorporation docs, and a ledger with Aaron's looping signature, next to numbers that made her stomach drop. She opened the first PDF with Lily asleep against her shoulder. The glow of the laptop painting both their faces blue. Cayman Islands, 2019. Transfer of $47 million labeled consulting fees to an entity called V.H. Legacy Holdings. V.H. Victoria Harris. Melissa's pulse hammered so hard she felt it in her teeth. She spent the next 72 hours locked in her home office, blinds drawn, digging like a woman possessed. Old passwords Aaron had been too arrogant to change still worked on dormant cloud drives. Forgotten USB sticks Lily found in a box of Daddy's old things. Held spreadsheets time-stamped the exact week Victoria had smiled that glacier smile in the hospital room. The picture that emerged was uglier than any tabloid ever printed, while Melissa had been selling her jewelry to pay for diapers. Aaron and Victoria had been siphoning hundreds of millions from Harris Global into a maze of fake trusts and fake charities. They cooked books to hide losses from a string of failed real estate deals in Dubai and Macau. They bribed inspectors, laundered through art auctions. And this was the knife twist. used the maternity wing of Street Augustine's, the very hospital where Lily was born, as a tax write-off while simultaneously embezzling the donation money meant for premature babies. The worst document was a memo dated 2 days after Lily's birth. To A. Harris. From V. Harris. Subject: contingency. If the child had been male, the offshore trusts would have remained hidden until majority. Since it is female, and the wife is now a liability, accelerate Phase 2. Dissolve marital assets. Transfer blame for excessive spending to M. Roger, and remove both from succession plan. Public narrative: gold digger. Flees with settlement. Actual result: 0 exposure. She read it 6 times before the words stopped swimming. They hadn't just thrown her out because Lily was a girl. They'd thrown her out because a girl couldn't be controlled the way a son could. And Melissa, poor, pretty Melissa with no powerful family, had been the perfect scapegoat to take the fall if regulators ever came knocking. She printed everything. 347 pages of lies, bound in black folders like a funeral for the people they used to be. That night she stood over Lily's bed and watched her daughter sleep thumb in mouth, lashes dark against her cheeks. The little girl who had been called a mistake, a burden, a disappointment, before she'd drawn her first breath. Melissa's hands didn't shake anymore. They were steady as steel. She opened a new, encrypted drive and titled the folder, Insurance. Then she did what the old Melissa would never have dared. She called a journalist. Not the gossip rags that had shredded her reputation. A real one. Elena Park. Pulitzer on the wall. Shark in the water. Melissa had cold-pitched her 6 months earlier for a profile on Phoenix Rise and been politely ignored. This time she sent 1 page. The V.H. Legacy ledger with a single line. I have the rest. Interested in the biggest corporate fraud story of the decade. Elena called back in 4 minutes. Miss Roger, she said, voice careful. If even 10% of what I'm looking at is real, the Harris family is finished. Melissa smiled in the dark. Good, she answered, because I'm just getting started. She hung up, walked to the window, and looked out at the city that had once chewed her up and spat her out. Somewhere across town, Aaron was probably sipping 1,945 Chateau d'Yquem, laughing about how completely he'd buried his past. He had no idea the past had grown claws, and it was coming for blood. By the time Lily turned 7, the name Melissa Roger no longer made people whisper, poor little ex-Harris wife. It made them lean in. Phoenix Rise had started in a laundromat apartment with a $50,000 grant and a second-hand laptop. 5 years later it was valued at $1.4 billion. Investors used to laugh when she walked into pitch meetings in $5 earrings and a blazer from Zara. They stopped laughing when she opened her mouth. Melissa could read a balance sheet like poetry and spot a predatory term sheet from across the room. She learned to weaponize silence, to let men dig their own graves with arrogance while she waited, calm, unblinking, lethal. When they asked who taught her, she smiled and said, starvation is an excellent professor. She finished her bachelor's degree online while nursing Lily through chickenpox. Her MBA came from Stanford Executive Program, full scholarship, graduated top of her class. The day the acceptance letter arrived, she framed it above Lily's bed so her daughter would grow up knowing ceilings were lies. Phoenix Rise grew like wildfire because Melissa built it for women the world had tried to erase. Single mothers, survivors, women told they were too emotional or too aggressive. She hired them, promoted them, paid them what men made, and watched them burn the old rules to the ground. Forbes put her on the cover at 31. Melissa Roger, the billionaire who rose from ashes and took no prisoners. She bought her first tailored suit the day the article dropped. Navy wool, sharp enough to cut glass. She wore it to the Harris Global shareholder meeting she wasn't invited to. Walked straight past security with a visitor badge she'd had printed herself. Sat in the back row and watched Victoria's face go the color of skim milk when the camera drones outside started chanting Melissa's name. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. The headline on every screen in the lobby did it for her. Phoenix Rise surpasses Harris Global in Q3 revenue. That night she took Lily to the rooftop of their new penthouse, the one with floor-to-ceiling windows and a garden. Lily called our Sky Castle. They ate ice cream straight from the tub while the city glittered below like spilled diamonds. Mommy, Lily asked, chocolate on her chin. Why do people keep saying you're famous now? Melissa laughed. The sound low and dangerous and free. Because, baby. Sometimes the people who hurt you hand you the exact bricks you need to build something bigger than they could ever imagine. Lily nodded solemnly, like 7-year-olds do, when they don't fully understand but feel the truth anyway. Melissa still kept the black folders in a fireproof safe. She added to them every month new documents, new whistleblowers, new threads in the noose she was patiently tying. But success tasted better than revenge right now. Revenge could wait. Empires couldn't. She started speaking at conferences. Not the women's breakfasts with watered-down mimosas. The big ones. Davos, Milken. The rooms full of men in Brioni suits who used to look through her. She walked on stage in blood-red heels and told them exactly how many women she'd made millionaires while they were busy underpaying their assistants. Then she dropped the mic, literally, and walked off to thunderous applause. Vogue called her the Queen of Comebacks. Time called her the most dangerous woman in tech. Victoria Harris sent a cease and desist when Melissa wore a custom gown to the Met Gala, embroidered with phoenix feathers, and the words, "Worthless, no more" across the train. Melissa framed the legal letter next to her Stanford diploma. At night, after Lily fell asleep surrounded by stuffed animals that cost more than Melissa's first apartment, she stood on the balcony and looked toward the Harris Tower across the river. Its golden H logo still glowed against the sky, but it looked smaller now, flickering. She poured herself one finger, and raised the glass to the darkness. "You taught me a daughter makes a woman worthless," she whispered to the wind. "Let me show you what this daughter helped her mother become." She drank, smiled, went inside to check quarterly projections. The girl who once sold her wedding ring for formula money was gone. In her place stood a woman who signed deals with the same hand that once rocked a crying baby in a freezing apartment. A woman who turned every tear into equity, every slammed door into a skyscraper. And somewhere in the back of her mind, a countdown had already started, because empires are nice. But watching the people who tried to bury you choke on the dirt while you sit on the throne they said you'd never touch, that's priceless. The first message came on a Tuesday night, sliding into her phone like a snake, wearing cologne. Unknown number. "I still think about the way you used to say my name. Can we talk?" For Lily. Melissa stared at the screen until it dimmed, then lit again with a second text. A throwback photo from their Maldives honeymoon. Her in white linen, him kissing her temple, both of them sun-drunk and stupidly in love. She blocked the number. He called from another one an hour later. This time she answered, voice arctic, "Say what you need to say, then lose this number." A pause, then that velvet voice she once begged to hear in the dark. "Mel, baby. I made mistakes. I was weak. Mother poisoned everything. I see that now." She laughed one sharp, ugly sound. "Congratulations on the epiphany. 4 years too late." He kept coming. Flowers the size of small trees arrived at Phoenix Rise headquarters. 24 black calla lilies, their old inside joke, from a Paris trip. The card read, "Forgive me the way only you ever could." She had security dump them in the trash chute in front of the delivery guy. Then came the public attempts. He showed up at Lily's school recital wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses like anyone believed the disguise. Cornered Melissa outside the auditorium, hands spread in surrender. "I just want to see my daughter." "Your daughter has a father-daughter dance next month," Melissa said, stepping around him. "She's going with Marcus from accounting. He can actually tie a bow tie without YouTube." His mask slipped for half a second, rage flaring behind the remorse. Then he grabbed her wrist, thumb pressing the exact spot he used to kiss. "Stop acting like you're untouchable, Melissa. You're still the girl who cried when I bought her a Birkin." She looked down at his grip, then up at him, slow and lethal. "I was. Then you taught me handbags don't pay for chemotherapy when your kid has a fever. And you've got $32 to your name." She twisted free. "Touch me again and I'll break your fingers in the exact order you proposed with." He switched tactics. Guilt, nostalgia, money, offered a trust fund for Lily. 50 million. Irrevocable. His lawyer's email dripped sincerity. Melissa forwarded it to her own attorney with 2 words. "Trace it." 3 days later she had proof the money was routed through one of Victoria's dirty shells, the same ones in her black folders. That's when she knew. He wasn't crawling back because he missed her. He was crawling back because Phoenix Rise was now worth more than Harris Global. And the feds were circling the fraud case Elena Park had been feeding for 18 months. Aaron needed a lifeboat. And Melissa, once his biggest weakness, was now the only person on Earth who could sink or save him. He showed up at her penthouse at 11:07 p.m. on a Thursday, drunk on desperation, and McAllen 25. Security buzzed her anyway. She let him wait in the lobby for 43 minutes, then walked down in silk pajamas and bare feet, hair twisted up like she'd been asleep instead of closing a 9-figure acquisition. He looked older, lines around his eyes, the kind money can't Botox away. When he saw her, he actually dropped to one knee, right there on the Italian marble, in front of the night concierge, who pretended not to watch. "Marry me again," he rasped. "I'll sign anything. Prenup, postnup. Give you controlling interest in Harris Global. I need you back." "We were magic, Mel." She crouched so they were eye level, close enough to smell the whiskey and fear. "Magic?" She tasted the word like poison. "You mean the part where you let your mother throw me out in the rain with a newborn? Or the part where you hid hundreds of millions while I sold my blood plasma to buy formula?" His mouth opened, closed. She stood. "You don't want me, Aaron. You want a parachute. And I'm not soft anymore." He lunged, trying to grab her hand. She stepped back, calm. "Security. Please remind Mr. Harris that no means no, and trespassing means jail." As they dragged him out, he shouted over his shoulder, voice cracking, "You'll regret this. You need me." Melissa watched the elevator doors close on his red, ruined face. Then she went upstairs, poured herself a finger of his favorite McAllen, and toasted the skyline. "I never needed you," she told the reflection in the window. "I needed you to show me exactly how strong I could be without you." She finished the drink, set the glass down, and opened the black folders. Time to stop playing defense. The indictment hit the wires at 6:03 a.m. on a Monday. U.S. Attorney's Office, Southern District of New York. Sealed complaint. Harris Global Holdings. Victoria Harris. Aaron Harris. Wire fraud. Securities fraud. Money laundering. Conspiracy. Possible exposure. $287 million and 30 years each. Melissa was already awake, sipping coffee on the terrace while Lily slept inside. Her phone lit up like a slot machine. She didn't smile. She exhaled one long, steady breath that tasted like 8 years of rage, finally getting oxygen. She had been waiting for this morning the way assassins wait for the perfect wind. Elena Park called first. "They're raiding the Harris Tower right now. Want to watch?" Melissa was already in the car. She stood across the street in oversized sunglasses and a baseball cap, watching black SUVs swallow the Golden H lobby. Agents carried out boxes stamped evidence in red. Aaron stumbled out in handcuffs, hair uncombed, tie crooked the first time the world had ever seen him imperfect. Cameras flashed. He looked straight ahead, but Melissa knew he felt her. She felt him, feel her, a spider sensing the vibration of the web it's caught in. That afternoon the U.S. attorney requested a meeting. They wanted her testimony. They wanted the black folders. She walked into Foley Square with a lawyer on each arm and a steel briefcase chained to her wrist. The prosecutor, a woman with a buzz cut and zero patience, laid it out. "We can bury them, Miss Roger, but we need the offshore keys only you have." Melissa opened the briefcase. Inside, 8 years of midnight digging, whistleblower statements, encrypted drives, and the original V.H. legacy ledger with Victoria's handwritten notes in blue ink. She slid it across the table. "Copy everything. Originals stay with me." The prosecutor raised an eyebrow. "You're not afraid they'll come after you?" Melissa smiled for the first time all day. "Let them try. I've been ready since the night they put me out in the rain. Back home, she turned her war room into a cathedral of destruction. 360-inch monitors glowed with timelines, org charts, money flows. Red string connected Victoria's charities to Aaron's shell companies to the hospital wing built with blood money. Every lie, mapped, color-coded, annotated. She hired the best forensic accountants money could buy, then paid them double to work faster. She brought in the ex-SEC investigator who'd been forced out for getting too close to Harris Global years ago. He took one look at her wall and whispered, "Jesus Christ, you built the whole case yourself." Melissa didn't blink. "I had time." Aaron tried to bargain from behind lawyers, offered her $500 million to make it disappear, sent Victoria herself to the penthouse with a blank check and crocodile tears. Victoria in pearls and panic. "We're family, Melissa. Blood doesn't betray blood." Melissa poured her tea, slow. "Lily is blood. You called her a mistake. Sit down, Victoria. You're shaking." She recorded every call, every threat, every pathetic plea. Added them to the evidence pile like trophies. The night before she was scheduled to turn over the master drive, Erin broke into her building, bribed a doorman, made it to her private elevator. She was waiting when the doors opened, barefoot in black silk, hair loose, holding the same glass of 1,945 Macallan she'd toasted with months ago. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in weeks. "They're going to take everything," he rasped. "Prison, Mel. Real prison." She tilted her head. "Good." He fell to his knees. Actually fell. "I'll sign the company to you. All of it. Just kill the story." She crouched, close enough to smell the fear sweating through his cologne. "You still don't get it," she whispered. "This was never about your money." She stood. "It's about the night you let them throw a 3-day-old baby into the rain because she wasn't a boy." She pressed the elevator button. "Tomorrow the world finds out exactly what kind of man does that." Doors closed on his broken face. Upstairs, Melissa opened the safe, removed the final drive labeled Lily, and kissed it once like a mother kissing a child, before sending her into battle. Then she walked to the window and watched the city that had once crushed her now bow at her feet. Tomorrow the headlines would scream. Tomorrow the empire would burn. Tomorrow she would stand in open court and watch them choke on every lie they ever told her. Tonight, she allowed herself one tear, not of pain, but of perfect, icy victory. The storm had arrived, and it had her name on it. The day the world ended for the Harris family began with perfect spring sunlight. Melissa walked into the federal courthouse wearing a blood-red suit, the exact shade of the ledger ink Victoria once used to sign away her future. Cameras exploded the second she stepped out of the black SUV. She didn't smile. She didn't need to. The look on her face was ancient and merciless, like a goddess who had finally decided Judgment Day had come. Inside, the courtroom was packed. Reporters, rivals, former employees who'd been ruined by Harris Global. Every seat taken. Erin sat at the defense table in a navy suit that hung loose on his frame, eyes hollow. Victoria beside him, pearls clutched like rosary beads, face powdered to hide the fact she hadn't slept in weeks. The prosecutor called the first witness, Melissa Roger. She took the stand the way queens take thrones. The clerk swore her in. Melissa placed her hand on the Bible and looked straight at Erin when she said, "I do." Then she began. For 4 hours she spoke. Calm, precise, lethal. Every offshore account, every forged signature, every charity that existed only on paper. She played recordings. Victoria's icy voice on speakerphone the night Lily was born, ordering the liability removed. Erin's drunken voicemails begging for mercy. She projected the memo that called her daughter a contingency. The courtroom was silent except for the click of cameras and the occasional choked sound from Victoria. Then Melissa did what no one expected. She turned to the gallery, where Elena Park sat in the front row holding a live feed. "Elena," she said clearly. "Roll it." Every screen in the courthouse, and every screen in the country, lit up with the documentary Elena had cut together from Melissa's evidence. 10 minutes. No narration. Just documents, audio, and one home video clip Melissa had saved for this exact moment. Security footage of her in the rain, clutching newborn Lily, while Victoria's voice floated from the hospital doorway. "Take your daughter and get out." The footage ended with present-day Melissa standing on the Phoenix Rise rooftop, city burning gold behind her. Voiceover, soft and deadly. "They taught me a daughter makes a woman worthless. I built an empire to prove them wrong. Today the empire they said I'd never touch falls, and I didn't even have to lift a finger. The truth did it for me." The feed cut to live shots outside. Harris Global stock halted, down 89%. Board members resigning in real time. Feds sealing the building. In the courtroom, Victoria made a sound like a wounded animal and lunged toward the stand. Bailiffs caught her before she reached the rail. Erin didn't move. He just stared at Melissa like she was the sun and he was already blind. When the judge called recess, Melissa stepped down. Erin's voice cracked across the chaos. "Mel, please." She stopped, turned, walked back until she stood over him. "Beg," she said quietly. He did. Right there in front of the world. On his knees in a $5,000 suit, tears and snot and 8 years of arrogance finally broken. "I'm sorry," he sobbed. "I'll give you anything. The company, the houses, everything. Just stop this." Melissa looked down at him the way Victoria once looked down at her in that hospital bed. "No," she said. Then she walked out. The cameras followed her into the sunlight. Reporters screamed questions. She paused on the courthouse steps. Lily's small hand tucked safely in hers. Her daughter wearing a tiny red blazer to match. One microphone shoved forward. "Miss Roger, what do you say to the Harris family today?" Melissa looked straight into the lens. "I say what they said to me the night they threw us out." She leaned closer. "Take your empire and get out." The crowd roared. Behind her, through the open doors, came the sound of Victoria Harris screaming her name like a curse. Melissa didn't look back. She squeezed Lily's hand, stepped into the waiting car, and let the door close on the sound of a dynasty dying. Redemption wasn't sweet. It was absolute. 3 months later, the auction was held in the same gilded ballroom where Melissa had once attended her first Harris charity gala. Trembling in borrowed diamonds, while Victoria dissected her with a smile. Now the chandeliers lit a different scene. Harris Global, broken into pieces by court order, sold off asset by asset to pay restitution. The final lot, controlling interest in what remained of the core company. The auctioneer's voice echoed. "Do I hear 200 million?" Melissa sat in the front row, legs crossed, red soles flashing. Lily, 9 years old and regal in a cream silk dress, sat beside her swinging her feet. 250, Melissa said, calm as ordering coffee. A ripple went through the room. Phones lit up. Cameras turned. The auctioneer swallowed. 250 from Miss Melissa Roger. "Do I hear 275? Silence. Aaron stood at the back, gaunt in a cheap gray suit, ankle monitor blinking beneath his cuff. Victoria wasn't there. House arrest in a penthouse that no longer belonged to her. Going once. Aaron's voice cracked across the ballroom. Mel. Every head turned. He walked forward like a man walking to his own execution, hands open, eyes red. Going twice. He dropped to his knees in the center aisle, right between the bidders who once kissed his ring. "Please," he said, loud enough for every microphone. "Take it. Take everything. Just forgive me. I was wrong. About all of it. About you. About Lily. About what makes a legacy." His voice broke. "You were always the strongest person I ever knew. I was too weak to stand next to you." Lily looked up at Melissa. "Mommy." Melissa stood. The room held its breath. She walked the aisle slowly, heels clicking like gunshots. Stopped in front of him. Aaron reached for her hand. She let him take it. Just long enough for him to feel how steady she was now. "I don't forgive you," she said, soft enough that only he heard the blade in it. "Not because I can't. Because you don't get to be absolved by the woman you tried to destroy. You live with it. Every day. That's the price." She pulled her hand free. Then she turned to the auctioneer. 500 million, she said loud and clear. "Cash. Close it." The gavel fell like a guillotine. "Sold." The ballroom erupted. Applause. Gasps. Camera shutters. Melissa signed the papers with the same pen Victoria once used to sign her exile papers. When the ink dried, she owned it all. The tower, the jets, the name that once crushed her. She walked back to Lily, took her daughter's hand, and together they stepped onto the stage that had once belonged to monsters. Melissa looked out at the crowd, at Aaron still on his knees, at the empire now wearing her name. "I was told a daughter made me worthless," she said into the microphone, voice ringing clear. "Today, I bought the empire that threw us away with profits my daughter helped me build. Turns out legacy isn't about bloodlines, it's about who's left standing when the smoke clears." She lifted Lily's hand high. "This is my heir. This is my legacy. And no one, will ever make her feel small again." The applause thundered so hard the chandeliers shook. Later, on the top floor of what was now Roger Tower, Melissa stood at the window with Lily asleep against her shoulder. The city glittered below like it had finally bowed. She whispered into her daughter's hair, the same words she'd whispered in that freezing apartment years ago. "We did it, baby. We're free." Then she turned, walked past the desk with her new nameplate, Melissa Roger, chairman and CEO, and closed the door on the past forever. Redemption wasn't crawling back. It was owning the battlefield, burning the map, and building a kingdom on the ashes. And she had. Thank you very much for watching. Comment below what you thought and what was the best or worst part. Don't forget to subscribe. Until next time.